Hey guys, today's video is brought to you by Off the Record, the app that goes in your pocket and fights your tickets for you. Listen, if you're watching this program, chances are you're going to get pulled over and you're going to get ticketed at least as often as the average once every 3 years. It's gonna happen. You might as well be ready. There's a whole system in place to use tickets to extract your money. The police, the court system, and especially the insurance companies. You have another option, guys. Off the Record is here for you. They'll fight your ticket for you. They'll go to court for you. You don't even have to go. Even if it's a bigger ticket like a DUI, a reckless, or misdemeanor, they will fight it for you and you don't even have to go. It is fantastic. Get the Off the Record app and use code TST10 or go to offtherecord.com/TST to get 10% off all your legal services through Off the Record for the next 3 years. Off the Record has a 97% success rate in getting tickets eliminated or substantially reduced. So why not use them? Don't be a part of the system. Fight the system and always fight your tickets with Off the Record. Hey folks, last week we got to drive 5 amazing GT Porsches, shockingly that I'd never driven before, in one unbelievable morning at the Porsche Experience Center racetrack. Now I drove these cars in chronological order. The 996 GT3 RS, the 997 GT3 RS 4.0, the 997 GT2 RS, the Porsche 911R, and then the 991 GT2 RS. 5 of the most amazing Porsches ever made. But a lot of the commenters started asking, well, what was my personal top 5 ranking for Porsche GT cars? And I thought that would be an excellent topic for another video. So here we go, my personal top 5 favorite Porsche GT cars of all time. Number 5. The 2011 Porsche 997.2 GT3 RS. I had the privilege of driving this press car on the Mojave Mile. I drove it to Mojave on a runway racing event for the car show, which aired on the Speed Network for about 3/4 of one season. The version that I drove, in fact, the exact car that I drove, was the same car that Top Gear's Richard Hammond sent into the grass at VIR earlier that year. It was a dark gray over red example, and it was fabulous. And that was my first really extended drive in a GT car. I'd only taken a couple out quickly here and there before. And what really sets me out about that car, and what really stands out about it, was my drive early in the morning from Los Angeles to Mojave in the middle of the desert. I left before sunrise, and I maintained, frankly, a shocking road pace to my young self, and I think something that would even impress me today. That car really seared in my mind how much motorsport theater could be involved in a car that was still very, very usable and even somewhat practical on the street. And so the Porsche 997.2 GT3 RS starts out the number 5 on my top 5 GT cars of all time. Number 4 on my top 5 GT Porsches of all time is the 2020 Boxster Spyder. Ah, blasphemy, they say. He said Boxster, that's not a GT car. But for 2020, starting in 2019, the Boxster Spyder is a true GT car, even though it is not credited on the badge. It has the same exact chassis, underpinnings, and modifications from the base model that the Cayman GT4 has. The only difference is that there's no roof. And while some might say the Boxster's roof isn't really that much of a roof, I must say that in the modern versions of the car, the newest versions of the car, it's actually quite easy to take that top on and off, and it's even reasonably well insulated when it's cold. Most importantly, it's got the 4-liter 6, which is not the same as the GT3s, but it's still very, very good. It's got some of the best balance in the business, and for all of the performance it gives you, it's still an incredibly practical and usable sports car. And I think the fact that you can take the top off makes it only better compared to the Cayman GT4, not worse. I know some of you guys like the coupes. Coupes are good, but if I'm on a racetrack, I want something a little more heavy hitting than a Cayman GT4. Whereas if I'm on a back road, 3,000 pounds and a 4-liter 6, Ooh, that is a tasty, tasty combination when you're that close to a short exhaust. Let's take a look at a highlight from my Boxster Spyder review from last year.
Whoa! I mean, it is a beautiful car. It's got enough power where it feels fast, especially considering the weight, especially if you keep it at the top of the power band. But it's got that Porsche slickness we love, that precision engineering, where it feels like you can't kill it. It really rewards smooth driving. Shifter and pedal feel, you know, they're perfect. The clutch is so soft. You use it every day, you get stuck in a traffic jam, it's no big deal. Very, very easy, very light clutch.
So that makes the Boxster Spyder 4-liter the number 4 on my top 5 Porsche GT cars of all time list. Number 3 on my personal best list of top 5 Porsche GT cars of all time is the 2018 911 GT3 Touring 6-speed. The 911 GT3 Touring is the result of a cynical attempt to lop the head off the flippery fuckery that was the 911R flip game. That was a $180,000 car new, being flipped for sometimes over $800,000, and Porsche was having none of that. Why should the flippers be making all that profit when clearly there was a demand for a wingless stick-shift GT3, which at the time was not sold. So they came out with a GT3 Touring. It wasn't quite as light as the 911R. It didn't have all the exotic materials that the 911R had. The body was mostly made of metal rather than the advanced composites of the 911R. But still, it had the full-on 500 horsepower, 9,000 RPM GT3 powertrain with a stick and no aero. Let's check out the video where Spike Ferriston and I have a go in his personal Chalk GT3 Touring.
Can I just point out that since we left the parking lot, I have not been under 4,000 RPM once. I've been most of the times between 5 and 7, with occasional trips up to 9.
Nice.
That's what this engine, I mean, obviously you can't drive like that in the city all the time, but up here.
But do you hear that meaty, throaty kind of bully sound?
Oh,
that's
awesome.
The difference between the GT3 and the 911R.
So as you can see, GT3 Touring is a delight up in the canyons, and judging by how many of them you see around Los Angeles, it's a practical daily driver as well, something I have no argument with. That's why it is the number 3 on Matt Farah's top 5 Porsche GT cars of all time list. Number 2 on my top 5 list of GT cars of all time is the extremely special, extremely frantic, extremely light, and very, very fast 911 GT3 RS 4.0 from 2010. This had, at the time, the largest displacement, most powerful naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engine ever put into a production car. 4 liters, 500 horsepower, 6-speed manual, and boy did it have a lot of excessive aero. They only made 600 of these things. They were really hard to get. They're worth a ton of money now. And here is a little taste of what it's like to drive Porsche's own museum car on the track at speed.
Man, it's able to turn down so hard. If you've got one of these, do not sell. Wow. That's my favorite part of the course here, just smashing it in second and climbing that hill with that kind of aggression. It's the driver's car right here, buddy. If you get into too much loud pedal too early, you can get into trouble, but if you do the dance, you learn the dance, and you finesse it around, smooth on, smooth off, what a rewarding machine. I mean, and fast. If Porsche was trying to sell me this 2010 model year car, 2011 model year car, you know, this year, I'd still think it was amazing.
The GT3 RS 4-liter is a very, very special car, and I was very lucky not just to have a little taste, but to have a taste on the racetrack. The rarity, the motorsport theater, the beautiful looks, the perfect proportions, and the exceptional sound is why that RS 4.0 is number 2 on my list of greatest GT cars of all time. And now, number 1. Da-da-da! The number 1 best GT car of all time, according to yours truly, who has tasted each and every one of them, is the 2016 Porsche 911R. Ah, the R. Some people say it is worth every penny. Some people say it is a waste of money because you can get very close for so much less. Having now tasted a 911R at and just over the limit on the racetrack, I can say that as an experiment in applying Porsche's philosophy behind building GT cars, but pointing it at fun rather than pure speed on the compass, has resulted in a car that is so fabulous to drive, I could happily drive one every day for the rest of my life and feel like I had given up almost nothing. Here is a little taste of what it's like to drive 911R on the racetrack at pace.
Man, what a chassis. Now without that rear wing, a little more playful, right? A little less downforce at the back. See, over that crest, things got light, back end came around, no downforce. God, this thing, it's absolutely telepathic. The front end knows what my brain wants from it and just keeps on delivering it. 8,500 RPM. God, what a great car this is. Nostalgia makes me think the RS 4.0 is the one to have, except if I had to pick one car to drive for the rest of my life, man, could I do a lot worse than this. I'd get air conditioning. It's getting hot here. The engine's very snappy, very free revving. Feels like it's not having to work very hard to make this thing move. Woo! What a phenomenal driving experience. The steering wheel, seating position, and pedals, the way it's set up for me, absolutely perfect. Bumpy in that braking zone, and this stays very composed. And in the heavy braking zone here, yep, into the ABS, this one, a lot of kind of flexibility in this, as long as you can get the front end to stick. Yes.
So you see, by ditching all the aero, by not focusing on lap times, and by bringing back the 6-speed manual gearbox into the GT car fold, the 911R gets all the credit in the world, and furthermore, was really the catalyst for the fact that it really seems like the GT3s and GT4s are going to have stick shifts going forward for the foreseeable future. Thank you, Porsche, for keeping the manual transmission alive. And you might notice that every single car on my top 5 list is a stick. That's not to say that Porsche doesn't build an excellent dual clutch gearbox. They do. But if you want the best in Porsche GT cars of all time, you gotta row your own. So there it is, the 997.2 GT3 RS, the Boxster Spyder 4-liter, the GT3 Touring, the GT3 RS 4.0, and the 911R. In order, Matt Farah's top 5 GT cars of all time. And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.